So I'm going to let Kade help share a story. We've been working together for about 4 years now. And well, he wanted to mic you, so Dustin can get that. But it's real simple how this relationship started. I was working with one of his many doctors on his team that we'd done a lot of foundation training together. And he said, hey, I've got these twin brothers that are high-level jiu-jitsu athletes. I didn't know who they were. I want you to help build them a strength program. I want you to work with them. I think you guys will blend well. So we connected, and well, I started with his brother, Ty. And I'll let him kind of share where it went. I want to give you guys really from a perspective of where this fits in as a pre, post, and the third position that it falls into around anybody with a strength program. But I'll let you share what actually made you do this.
All right, keep in mind this was like years ago. I was a lot younger, right? Yeah, I'll come over here. So yeah, this was a couple years ago. I was a lot younger, maybe a little bit more naive. So I remember my brother, I just remember being in a hotel room. I think I had a fight coming up, and I just see him out next to the window doing some weird stuff. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Like, I remember just completely writing it off at first. And just very traditional in a sense where like, I'm just gonna do my sport. If it's not broke, don't fix it type thinking. And I remember just my brother continued to do these weird poses for 3-4 weeks. And you know, my brother and I, he's my identical twin, right? So our whole life, we've kind of just been at the same level our whole life. And the first time in, 18 plus years of training together that I noticed a real difference in his performance in our rounds, right? Every time we would train together, if I were to submit him, next round he's submitting me. It was always right there. And within like 3-4 weeks of Ty consistently doing this foundation, he was beating me like 70-30%, maybe like 80-20, and it was driving me crazy. And I couldn't, I was like, I thought I was in a slump. I couldn't understand what was different. And I just felt, it wasn't even from a technical standpoint, but I felt his not only his strength, his explosivity, he was working better than me, and I couldn't put a dot on it. And then finally, it was probably like a month and a half later, Ty's working with Jessie. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna give this thing a go. And I remember applying, you know, all the same techniques, all the same, different poses, and within again a couple weeks, just noticing the amount of not just explosivity differences, but the strength differences. It really honestly brought my game from here to here. We started, winning a lot of more titles and things like that after that. And it was honestly not just a game changer, but a life changer for my brother and I, not just from a pain relief standpoint, from also just a strength building standpoint. And I think one thing that's really interesting that Jess, would always, all the PTs around me would always say is, I heard it again today, is like, you're really only as strong as your weakest link, right? And I think that's one thing that foundation training is so amazing at, is making sure your body's working together all as one, right? It doesn't matter how strong you are in your left bicep. If your right shoulder's not really working, it's gonna be hard to push that guy off of you, right? So that's one thing that just foundation is, it's affected my career, which obviously has affected my life. So all the thanks to Doc Goodman and Jesse and you guys, and yeah, wouldn't have been here without you guys, so thank you.
Yeah. All right, brother. Thank you. Might borrow you for a gorilla. For sure. All right, so one of the big ones that I get asked all the time was, when do the weights come in? And for the longest time, and many sessions of sitting with Dr. Brown, Dr. Eldridge, Dr. Goodman, listening to Mike Rintala, Dr. Rintala speak, and it shifted the way I looked at things. Because my background was a fireman, strength and conditioning coach. I developed wellness programs within the fire service for the city of Orlando. And I found this as a result of an injury. What it exposed for me was a lot of the imbalances that I had developed from heavy lifting, barbell patterning. I was doing all functional training that I thought was pretty sound. I was an Olympic weightlifter and was very strict with it, but the breakdown injuries were starting to show up. That put me into foundation training, and suddenly all my lifts felt better. My body felt more resilient. So over the years, what we started looking at was really, why with these guys fighting against dudes that are doing West Side barbell programming, if you're familiar with that, that is massive amounts of weight, and consistently train that development. And these guys make them look like, not only is their jiu-jitsu just at such a level, but they're in the ring performance side. It looks like the guy is no different. And we put about this much now of real external load into their game. And as we spent time together, what we started looking at is really the isometric component that's involved with foundation training. Then we started looking at, well, why, when we're doing this, do their bodies always feel better? And we look at that, from the corrective exercise components. But what I really want to get across today is that when we look at foundation training going into strength, is that a big component is the isometric. It's pattern prepping for loading the system. Isometrically tensioning, recruiting as many muscles as we can. expanding everything out from center so that we're not loading and compressing an already compressed system. And if you look at most of us, when we get out of the car, when we go into the gym, I think Jason touched on a little bit today, is that a warm-up is usually, well, let me get a bead of sweat, let me get on a treadmill, let me do a couple of this, and then get to it. And what it typically looks like is this person right here is going to start picking heavy things up. And when you watch that person go to pull into, say, a deadlift, which I do think is a life lift, which is something that we should do, what we typically see is this right here. That pattern of the pelvis following under, the head following forward, and they're going to just continuously load because somebody told them that that's important. So with the guys, what we end up getting into, because that was a component, that was the goal, was let's start getting to where we can load your frame. We have to make you stronger. But first, I got to do my research. I went with them to a couple trainings, and if you watch these guys train at the level that they fight at, it's extremely violent. And so we go in, and I'm watching them, and in between, I'm like, hey, what's going on? I'm watching them in between rounds, and it's round after round, walking like this. And I'm like, hey, how's your back? Oh, no, it's fine, it's fine, it's normal. It's normal, it's cool. Doing this. Oh, no, it's normal, it's cool. It'll go away. Okay. So that night we were supposed to go get into the gym and like scratch that plan. I can't load that system. I'm not like, that's irresponsible for me. So it was heavy foundation for a few weeks. It was starting to prime patterns, prime their bodies to know where they are in space for one, how to start recruiting and stabilizing with muscle so that when we did go into the gym, it was actually a prime system that these patterns weren't foreign anymore. And Tim referenced Peter Park at the start of this, and he said one of the best things I've ever heard in reference to foundation training before lifting is that it primes patterns, and we over cue and coach when they do FT so that we can under coach and cue when they're under load in lifting. Meaning that there's such a hyper focus on patterning. We're all going to do a gorilla lift here today because I want you guys to see where this goes. But there's such a hyper focus on cueing body awareness and integration that when they go under the barbell, it's very little talking. I will touch on the most common mistake I see when people are complaining about back pain and picking heavy things up, because it blows my mind how often I see it now. But I'm going to have Kade show everyone a gorilla, and I'm going to have all of you practice a couple. So let's go ahead and go and get some space, guys. You can kind of start matching, because what we want to do is we want to prep a pattern. Okay, so we're going to take our legs a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. This time, Eric referenced 3 exercises where we are externally rotated. So this time we're going to let our toes slightly angle outward. And what we're going to do in this position, all we're going to think about is a couple times. We're going to chop, let the hips sit back and the hands come out. And then come back up. We're just going to do that 3 or 4 times. I want you to think and pull your toes up on this one. Chop the hips, let them reach back, hands reach out. So hips and hands are pulling apart. And come back up. This time I want you all to think your feet are spreading apart. And as your hips pull back, your knees are spreading apart. So chop the hips back. Feet, hips, knees, everything's peeling apart. Reach your butts further back. Try to let your hips lower so they're just above the knees. Push the knees wide. We're going to spin on our pinkies and bring the forearms together. Bend the elbows enough you can squeeze the forearms. Take a big breath into the back of the rib cage. Pushing the knees apart. Let your hips pull up and back a few inches. 3 big inhales here. And then everyone stand back up. And just shake your bodies out for a second. So if you really think about what we're doing with that, a founder is a lot of hips and very little knees. We're lengthening the hamstrings. Really important that a lot of people on one of our YouTube videos are like, it made my back so much better. When you start making this habit all the time, and these people are doing a 12-minute workout consistently, and we're holding these positions, you're developing muscular endurance in these positions. The posterior chain, the backside of the body, suddenly a body starts waking up to like, hey, I'm not supposed to be in external rotation and using my lumbar spine to pick everything up, but rather hinge at my hips, hold this, and develop some muscular endurance for the low back, up the back. So then when we're loading the system, that's not uncommon. If you get into some of the research that Stuart McGill quotes, is that the #1 mistake people make before getting into strength training or coming out of a back injury is that they focus on strength before muscular endurance. So we have the bird dog. I'm going to guess everybody in here knows it. But what I'm going to get at why with a gorilla lift and with a founder becomes so important is that you're going to do that in everyday life. And you want that to become your dominant habit. You go here. You want when you go to pick the kids up, you get a little bit wider, you load into that gorilla, and you think about scooping from the hips and the lats. So let's go one more time. We're going to hold it. Legs wide, toes out slightly. We're going to guide those hips back. Sit into your heels for a minute and just rock side to side. Push your knees apart. Now, as the arms come out, pull your hips up and back a few inches. Really think about you're reaching your bum back. Your knees are pushing wide. Grab with all your toes here and push the knees apart. Spread the feet apart. Go for 5 inhales to the back of your rib cage. Squeeze those arms. Feel your lats wrap the rib cage. Spread your fingertips out. Look down the line of your pinky fingers and think chin in, neck long. Don't let the hips start to sink. Pull them up and back. Tension the pockets apart. Tension your thighs apart. And then stand back up. So we'll prep and prime that pattern so that we're training the body to load the hip extensor complex. Again, I'm going to cite another one that really popped to me to Stuart McGill, in that where they see workers, the people that run society, blue collar, to me the most important, but the most important people in this world are those day-to-day that come in and out of the office. What they showed was that people that lifted with the spinal erectors instead of the hip extensor complex, they were more prone to injury than those that use the hips. So if we start thinking about that in clinic, you can help people start to recognize this. You can give them homework where this becomes a day in and day out thing. And then you start showing like, hey, when you're going to go into the gym, I want you to warm up with this. And you start priming these patterns, this integrated connection of the muscle chains. And then absolutely we have to learn how to breathe and brace the abdominal. That's where like the synergy in my mind of foundation training and DNS are so powerful together, because I'm not going to have someone decompress their spine and then try to pick something heavy up. I'm not going to have somebody get into that lengthened rib cage, abdominal bracing, and then have them squat or press overhead. I think those are very important lifts in the right equation. But we want to really think about priming a system so that when we go under load, they can then know how to breathe and brace. And if you think about what we did there, we loaded your hips back, we tensioned. When we brought the arms together, we made those lats wrap. Last one I'm going to say is take your legs wide. This time, angle the toes in. Find that pigeon-toed position. Let's take the hands against the front of the legs. Now, what I want you guys to think about is the armpits and elbows wrap towards the rib cage. The chest comes up. Think about a proud posture. Lift the weight of your head off your neck. Ears in line with the shoulders. Crown of your head's pulling up. We're simply going to start to push the hips back. Hands get to slide down the legs. Knees should subtly unlock. When you're just above the knees, hips are back, pull your toes up and spread them out. Push those hands against your thighs as the elbows and armpits wrap the rib cage. See if you can feel the lats engaging, the hamstrings tensioning as you pull the hips back. Take a big breath here. Scoop the hands out, pull your hips further back, and then come back up. So that patterning of being able to load into the hips, engage the lats. The last thing we start worrying about, especially when going under load, is then bracing the abdominal. But if you can connect those dots where the muscle system is, in my mind, big compression pistons working together, and all we need is that breath to connect the dots when we go under load, you're going to be stronger, you're going to be more resilient, and it's setting a stage for everyday life. Because we see it all the time, is the people coming to us going, I need homework, I wish I could have something to do every day. And by doing it every day, you develop this subconscious habit. And like these guys, it just turned into the 3 places we use it. Not today. We're not lifting today. We're using foundation because you're moving like this. You're all torqued and twisted. We use it as a warm-up before training, 10 to 12 minutes. We're priming the entire system. Sometimes it's all we do because we're just isometrically engaging, contracting, integrating, challenging the system because they're close to a fight. We don't want to load them anymore. Or we're done training, done with jiu-jitsu, and we need to take this from jiu-jitsu or from all the weightlifting. It's a lot of external rotation, whether you're deadlifting, squatting, and we're making sure to zip everything back up so that we're not in this, we'll say, duck foot pattern position where those adductors aren't stabilizing the pelvis, as Eric talked about. We want to bring back that central pelvic stability with expansion. And then pretty much from there, it's kind of always letting the athlete guide. Last thing I'm going to say is, will you turn sideways? We go back into that gorilla, but let your hands touch the ground. So I'm gonna have him show you guys real quick because we're gonna just touch on the most common injury with deadlifting and why it happens. Picking something heavy up off the ground. So when he touches his fingertips down, this is what the proper true gorilla lift looks like. Let one hand scoop. So I just had all of you open up your thoracic spine. He's focusing on hips pulling wide, loading the hips back. As he's scooping, his pinky edge is trying to be high, as opposed to this, and look at all that range he's got. But we want to think, open up the shoulders, open up the neck, spiral external rotation, pull your hips back, switch hands. And we're thinking about these lats having to get long in that position. And he's shaking, he's working hard. But what we're doing is priming a pattern of tension. We're opening up the glutes, we're opening up the adductor, we're lengthening the lats. We're priming this system to then be loaded. Go ahead and stand back up. The number one thing that I see again and again for everybody is that when we're picking up an external load, is people think then they line up. If this was I'll just use this little thing as an example. They walk up to it and it's at the tips of their toes. That's too far out in front of me already. If it's a barbell, for sure, especially if it gets heavier, because I can load my hips back, but I've got to go out here to pick it up. I want this thing here where I'm engaging my lats, I'm pulling that load into me, I'm staying through that muscle chain in these positions where I'm lengthened, I'm tensioned, I'm pushing apart, I breathe, I brace, I stand. And we do that patterning so much with FT, we then just fluidly go into lifting. But if you think about that for everybody, you're picking up boxes, you're giving homework to your clients, get close to it, get over the top of it, load your hips back, engage the lats, external rotation, clamp it, and stand up. Like I said, I was a fireman for a very long time. Back injuries were the number one reason why guys went out. And it's the reoccurring grind, 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 train hard, train heavy, and then we just see these reoccurring injuries and breakdowns that end up taking careers away very early. That's kind of been my goal of getting this work out there. Luckily, I found these guys. We kind of operate on the same level. He's 22, I'm 42, but you know, we seem to be on the same page.
We make
it work. So, thank you guys. There's a whole lot of other stuff in the performance aspect of it, but it feels like everyone kind of associates lifting and going, well, when do we load? When do we load? But just remember, that's one component. Speed and agility is another. We mostly stick to kettlebells to keep explosiveness, and then we're doing more plyometrics and just kind of looking at what do they need instead of trying to fit them in a box of what I want to give them. And I say that for everybody is what does the person need, not what box do you want to train them under. Okay, guys, thank you. Woo-hoo!